This keyboard has 2 USB ports, which means you can control a gaming PC and a streaming PC from one keyboard. And I'm gonna be real with you, that is probably the least exciting thing about this keyboard. Pulsar sent me out this keyboard for free, but they're not paying me to make this video, nor did they even ask me to make a video. They just wanted to know what I think. And to be brutally honest with you, I don't think having 2 USB ports on a keyboard is enough to justify the absurd $300 asking price. But everything else about this keyboard, it might just get close. And I know that sounds crazy because in what world is $300 justifiable for a keyboard? I get it, but I've built dozens of custom keyboards before that are hundreds of dollars, and this smokes pretty much most of them. This is the Xboard QS. It's made out of aluminum. It's got a volume knob which can be reprogrammed to whatever you want. I use mine to jog my timeline in DaVinci Resolve, which makes it great for editing. And it's got all of the custom keyboard buzzwords you can think of: gasket mounted, south-facing LEDs, VIA support. Someone at Pulsar is definitely a big fan of custom keyboards because this thing is dense and it feels better than almost any keyboard that I've ever built. And I built a lot of them. First off, the keyboard has gigantic assholes at the bottom. I think Pulsar is trying to match the aesthetic of their mice. It's pretty much their signature styling at this point, but I don't think it's just for aesthetics. I think the holes open up the sound of the keyboard and give it a more bright and energetic sound signature, which has a lot of character, unlike most keyboards today, which are stuffed to the brim with foam and everything just sounds exactly the same. Like, who cares? I don't care if your keyboard sounds floppy or thocky, whatever the fucking word of the day is. I'll leave a typing test at the end, or you can just skip ahead to that. But that being said, this is fully aluminum and it's incredibly well built. Also, the gasket implementation is also top notch. If you don't know, gasket mounting is another one of those pretentious keyboard nerd words, but basically they've sandwiched the PCB assembly between strips of foam, which produces a really soft typing feel that's super comfy to type on. But it's not obnoxiously bouncy. It's pretty hard to convey on camera. You really just have to feel it, but the typing experience on this is elite. We've seen several gaming brands attempt a gasket mount before. This is one of the good ones. Of course, the Xboard has hot swappable switches, so you could pull out the switches and swap them in with whatever you want. But to be honest, you probably don't want to switch them out. Whereas most keyboards have some generic flavor of cherry switches, most custom keyboards have some weird exotic switches like Cocoa Mocha Latte or Emerald Paradise or whatever the hell switches. These come with Kale Ice Mints, and they're very light, very easy to type on, very smooth. I wouldn't even bother lubing these, but if you did want to swap out the switches, it does have south-facing LEDs, so you don't have to worry about north-facing interference. If you don't know what north-facing interference is, look it up. I can't be bothered explaining. Personally, I wouldn't mod this keyboard at all. I think the stock sound and typing field is ridiculously good. I know some keyboard nerds are probably gonna flame me over this, but this easily competes with all the $200 to $300 customs that I've built or I've tried. This might be better than every custom that's on my shelf right now. Oh, I forgot to mention, yes, the keycaps are double shot PBTs. So the legends are a completely separate piece of plastic, meaning that they go all the way through the keycap. So they'll never fade away, but they aren't shine through. So if you care about that, then too bad. But honestly, shine through is cringe. I actually prefer how these look. I do wish that they had replacement keycaps for the gamer keys though. But yeah, honestly, this is really, really good. And that's incredible coming from a gaming brand, because gaming brands are supposed to be bad at making keyboards. But anyway, now that I'm done having a gooning session over how this keyboard sounds and feels, let's talk about those USB ports. And I think this is the only reason that Pulsar sent me this keyboard. I don't really make keyboard videos, although I definitely should because I'm really passionate about this stuff. But this keyboard has 2 USB-C ports and 2 USB-A ports. And the idea is that you can plug the keyboard into a streaming PC and a gaming PC and then switch back and forth without the need for a second keyboard and mouse. And yes, I did say keyboard and mouse. You can plug your mouse into one of those USB-A pass-through ports. And then there's 2 buttons next to the volume knob to switch between your 2 PCs. And as long as your mouse is plugged into the keyboard, you'll also be able to use that mouse on your second PC. You'll have a spare USB port which you can use for whatever you want. I found this really useful for plugging in a Stream Deck. So you can plug in a Stream Deck into the keyboard, and then when you switch from your gaming PC to your streaming PC, the Stream Deck will reconnect to the streaming PC as well. This is a really niche feature. It's cool, don't get me wrong. I've never seen or heard of a keyboard that can be plugged into two PCs at once, but you could just go out and buy a KVM switch and do pretty much exactly the same thing with the keyboard that you already have. Or if you don't want to spend any money, you could use free software like Mouse Without Borders or Barrier. Granted, there are times that I've needed to navigate through the BIOS on my second PC, and Mouse Without Borders doesn't work there because it's a Windows program and it works over your local network. But still, I don't think dual USB ports is a reason to spend $300 on a keyboard. Or just buy a second keyboard or mouse for way cheaper. Like, how much desk space do you need? I will admit though, using the USB pass-through to plug in an SD card real quick is kind of nice, but then again, there's a lot of keyboards that have USB pass-through, so this is not exactly a unique feature. Now, if you don't want to plug your mouse into the keyboard because maybe you've got one of those expensive mice with the gigantic ass dongles and you don't want that hanging off the end of your keyboard, you can still navigate your mouse cursor using the W, A, S, and D keys if you hold down the function key. So that way, when you switch to your second PC, even though you don't have access to your mouse anymore, you still can control the mouse cursor. There's also a dedicated key to switch between Windows and Mac layouts. Honestly, I don't know how often you'll be switching between those layouts. Maybe if your keyboard is plugged into both a PC and a Mac, maybe that will be useful, but yeah, it was just a little bit too easy to accidentally press. Thankfully, you can remap that key because this keyboard supports VIA out of the box. VIA, if you don't know, is a generic software that can be used to remap every key to whatever you want. And the cool thing is that it can be accessed directly through a browser. So you don't even need to install any bloatware that you never asked for or have any software running in the background, sucking up resources and trying to kill your computer. And literally everything can be reprogrammed. You can reprogram those two PC buttons. You can change that Mac layout toggle to something else. Maybe instead of turning it into a Mac layout, you can turn the function row into F13 to F24 keys, so you have an extra set of hotkeys to use with OBS or StreamerBot or something. I didn't need my knob for volume controls because I have a million Stream Deck Pluses for that. Thank you, Elgato, I love you. I programmed my knob instead to be left and right. So when I turn it left, it presses left on my keyboard, and turn it right, it presses right. And then also when I click into it, I made it press Control \. So that way I can easily scroll through my timeline in DaVinci Resolve and then make quick cuts by clicking into the knob. I didn't realize how much I needed a knob on my keyboard, but that alone might make this my full-time editing keyboard. Now, one thing we're still waiting from Pulsar, or really most gaming brands, is Rapid Trigger. Now, the Wooting so far has been the gold standard for gaming keyboards due to its magnetic switches with adjustable actuation. And don't get me wrong, I love all of the tech inside of the Wooting. I think it's awesome, but it is impossible to make that keyboard sound good. Trust me, I've tried all of the mods that the YouTuber people told me to do. I bought like the aluminum case. I spent like more on the keyboard than the keyboard actually costs. It just has terrible acoustics. So we're still waiting for a gaming keyboard that has all that great Rapid Trigger tech, but in a build that's as good as this. Because the first company that can combine those, that's gonna be the keyboard of the year, even if it costs $300. Anyway, I don't know if this video is 10 minutes yet, but I'm going to pad out the rest of this with typing noises so I can make more ad revenue. Okay, thank you, enjoy.